everything. You know, I wanted to mention too, it's very important that what I wanted to mention there about the cannabis. You know, even pigs want to get high. I think they've done studies. You know, it's in the human nature.
They actually found some crack squirrels in England where the drug addict, the crack people were hiding their crack in the park.
Well, that's what I wanted to let you mention that.
And they went off their food.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Denise, because recently I was talking to a recovering tweaker, a guy my age who's settled down now and happily daily married in Santa Rosa. And I mentioned something about how the cannabis people are always helping each other, especially with acts of love, and we're getting cannabis into the people who need it, you know, Laguna Honda and all these places. And I mentioned, he mentioned, I didn't mention that to him, but he said, oh yeah, when I was doing tweak, you know, and I go, how could you even mention narcotics with this medicine, cannabis? I said, see, this is what Nixon did. This is what that crazy Capricorn Richard Nixon did. He summoned all the great scientists at the time to come up finally with a final answer on cannabis, the bottom line. And then when they handed him that, you know the story, they handed him that pamphlet, and he personally just played God and threw it in the toilet, threw it right in the garbage, and ruined. And since then, as I said, it was fade. If we didn't have that, you know, this is, you know, like I say about George Bush, if we didn't have George W. Bush, we'd have to invent him. We needed someone to play the catalyst. What we do is we eat the menu instead of the meal. You know, we forget the. You know, there's only one reason we look back, and that's because we're choosing to stay bitter at that moment. I'm not choosing to stay bitter at that moment. I just want to get that fire in people's belly now to stop, you know, wake up from the brainwashing. Yesterday on Imus in the morning, you had Dick Gregory. God bless Dick Gregory. He's doing strong. He's still doing great, my brother Dick Gregory. And he was talking about how the media doesn't ask questions. Well, why should they? They get tasered. Look at last year when some kid in during this last election asked somebody, during the Kerry election, asked some hard question. Yeah, and they tasered him, you know. We got, as I said, George, coming to the Bush administration, we totally used the Declaration of Independence for toilet paper, you know. And then, as I say, fear's a drug. Well, you know, it brings me to, I wanted to mention Sylvia Brown, but we'll have to do this in another show. But this is an important book. It's called The Buddha and the Terrorist by Satishkumar. Now, the book, that book, story's an old story, it's been told, but what's really important about this book is the foreword by Thomas More, author of Care of the Soul, and in which he says something very important. He says, terror, the word of terror is a wonderful word. In the ancient word, they would consecrate a church and they'd say, terrible is this place, meaning life is a mystery that makes you tremble and fascinate you. The ultimate terror is a stark realization of the holiness and awesomeness of life. When you see something so beautiful, it sends a chill through your body. He says, but you know, humans are always trying to usurp power for their own purposes, and he goes on and on about when you use terror to strike, that's an abomination. You know, renouncing terrorism doesn't mean that you become passive and faint-hearted. It means that you have the imagination, the self-possession, and the strength to reconstruct terrorism as the awe and beauty and the power of life. You become a spiritual warrior. You discover that it takes far more courage to transform the impulse towards justified violence than to embrace the supposed adversary. You know, so I'm telling, you know, so when I see, like, my brothers and sisters, because I'm in the cannabis movement, getting bludgeoned, and also, you know, the no tolerance, well, anyway, his karma will catch up with him. I don't want to even mention Giuliani. Well, as far as you're going now, because we're probably, you know, getting into some time here, when I met you, when you opened your own path up to, I want to give people a chance to see my psychic abilities here. Also, too, before I get into the cards, I wanted to mention, numerology speaking, America is born on the 4th of July, right? In numerology, anybody's day and month reduced to one digit is how that person relates to life on a daily basis. So July 4th is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So America is all about revelations. And it's funny because the Twin Towers, to me, being symbolically literate, you don't have to be a psychic to see the symbolism in the Twin Towers. It's 11, you know, so actually 2009 is 11, 11 and 11 is 22, so America, the whole universe right now is, America rather, is in a 22 year, and the universal vibration is 11. Next year things will lighten up. We're going to see a lot of the seeds we planted 2 years ago start popping up next year, and as Louise Hay says, don't go stepping on sprouts in your 3 year, because unless you're a trained gardener and you see a little sprout come out of the ground, you don't say, oh, there's a tomato plant, unless it's a big green thing, big red things hanging off of it. So next year I think we'll have a lot of pleasant surprises, and I think everybody in the astrological community is really psyched about the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces, the last year of the Uranus in Pisces. It's all about spirituality. It's really like the Dalai Lama said, the 21st century will be spiritual or it won't be. So anyway, when I met you, and I say to share a little of yours without too much, we had some open wounds from when you were a child, and immediately we closed them, and then you had a healing crisis. Things get a little worse before they get better. And now you're in good shape. You seem to be on all fours there. Yeah, I learned a lot from Louise Hay, and who's actually in order. I met Sylvia Brown first and then Louise Hay. But Louise Hay recently was on Oprah Winfrey. She's 97, and she, I wish that Oprah had asked her a cannabis story, because when I met Louise Hay back in Fort Mason, I don't think I'm breaking any confidences here. I grabbed her by the arm. I was only like 30 years old. I was young, you know, so green you could plant me, and I dragged her into the corner because we made eye contact, and I asked her a very personal question. I said, I love my cannabis, and everybody's telling me it's horrible and this and that, and I see it as totally a medicine. And I'll never forget it, she touched me and she said, oh, Frank, she says, I use it myself. She says, cannabis is about sadness and grief, and tobacco's anger. And I can't tell you, I've worked with at least hundreds of cancer people, and cannabis works for so many, it's common knowledge now. You know, I always tell people, sometimes I go to cancer wards and I'll say, if they make some changes, they can really walk out of there, you know, and I'll say to them, I'll sit on the bed and I'll say, you want to hear a joke? And they'll say, yeah, okay. They don't know who I am, but I say, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? And they look at me like, who is this man? And I'll say, only one, but the light bulb's really, 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 really got to want to change. You know, so with Pluto, the planet of death, destruction, and rebirth, we're all in transformation. So it's really important to wake up and remind yourself, this is happening for me, not to me. Only right action is happening in my life. You know, the throat chakra rules all the chakras. And in 2 seconds, I'll tell you the chakra system. Okay, the 7 chakras. First chakra, second chakra, third chakra, all below the navel. Sex, power, sex, creativity, power. Navel's the power chakra. Then you got the heart is the bridge to the upper chakras. The throat, this is where God lives. This is the quantum area. You know, in the quantum spiritual world, words like justice, equality, just love, those are just fictional concepts Hollywood writes movies about, but in the quantum world, they really mean something.